Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll do a deep dive into NVIDIA stock, which is part of our top 5 stocks for 2025. And I expect NVIDIA to again outperform in 2025, even though we had 2 amazing years from NVIDIA. NVIDIA is part of the top 5 stocks for 2025. I highly recommend go check it out. As usual, we'll kick it off with some latest updates on NVIDIA. The CES event just wrapped up, so there are a lot of interesting updates from that event. We'll then dive straight into the earnings history of NVIDIA, followed by the earnings estimate, followed by the valuation. Then we'll touch upon the price targets from the analysts. Lastly, we'll look at the technical analysis. And because we sell a lot of options, I will also share a couple of option trade ideas for NVIDIA as well. So stick around till the end. So without further ado, let's dive in. Before we dive into NVIDIA, I got a couple comments from my last video where some users were disappointed that most of my picks were only in large mega cap companies. Let me share with you 2 main reasons why I have selected those stocks. Number 1, every investor's investing journey is very unique. Mine will be very different from yours. So I am primarily a tech investor who loves to invest in big mega cap companies. I'm not too thrilled to invest in small and mid cap companies. That does not mean that there is no growth in those companies. One of the viewers mentioned that there are 490 plus companies in S&P 500, whereas I only focus on the top 7 companies. Well, that is just because that's how I invest. I have been investing in Apple since 2009. I've been investing in Amazon from 2012. The same goes with Netflix. The same goes with Google. So I'm pretty comfortable in how I invest. Also, remember, I'm talking about long-term investing and not trading. I tend to trade a lot of small caps and mid caps for short to mid term, and even for swing trades that could span a couple months. Reason number 2 is to do with the market leaders. Generally, when you invest with market leaders, you tend to outperform. AI revolution is the next big thing after internet. So if the thesis is correct that AI revolution is going to transform and revolutionize every aspect of our lives, I want to put my money with the top companies that have the dollar to spend in R&D. They are bringing the latest and greatest products to the market. Unfortunately, for small cap and mid cap, the problem they are going to have in this world is they are restricted by the cash they can raise. Take an example of OpenAI. Even OpenAI needed a lot of cash from Microsoft and other investors to really bring a very disruptive product which changed the game of large language models. So that is my philosophy of investing long term. Does not mean that is the only philosophy. When you look at these investing ideas on YouTube, listen to everybody, take notes, and then look at your portfolio and see which ideas aligns with your portfolio. So hopefully I cleared that, and now let's jump straight into NVIDIA. The CES 2025 event just wrapped up this week, and there were 3 big takeaways which are going to change how we invest and how we should look at the technology companies and specifically NVIDIA in the coming years. So the first takeaway, AI is everywhere and we just cannot escape the advent of AI in our lives now. From large language models to robotics to agentic AI, everywhere we are just talking about AI. Now, seemingly every company was promoting their own AI capabilities, with NVIDIA talking up its latest AI software and robotics firms demonstrating their latest humanoid bots. So that was more on NVIDIA. Now the second one was the PC chips becoming AI chips now. So companies like AMD, Intel, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, they all announced new chips that are going to be AI chips for the PC itself. And thirdly, we are going to see more and more auto taxis or robo taxis, coming out in the future. This is just an example from Amazon's self-driving company Zoox. We have Waymo, we have robo taxi coming out from Tesla. So it's just going to get bigger and bigger. We even had Honda Zero Salon and Honda Zero SUV vehicles launch, which had a lot of AI capabilities within it as well. By the way, NVIDIA also announced that Toyota is using its technology to power the automaker's driver assistance capabilities. Here is a funny 10-second clip from Jensen Huang's speech. Let's watch it together.
Wait for it. Wait for it. I thought I was worthy.
Well, that was funny, Jensen Huang being a nerd. But hey, listen, when you have that many $1 billion, you can do whatever you like. I like his new leather jacket as well. NVIDIA is a beast when it comes to delivering earnings after earnings. In their last earnings report, which was 11/20, they delivered $35 billion and they beat it by almost $2 billion. Crazy, they beat their EPS as well. The next earnings report is going to come out on 2/26. They're expecting a $38 billion, which is $3 billion more than the previous earnings. So that just goes to show the revenue is increasing every single quarter. So far, we have 34 up revisions. If this trend continues, where they continue to beat on the revenue, which is $2 billion here almost, $1.3 billion here, $1.48 billion here, we could see about a $39 or $40 billion in revenue. So we definitely would need a beat from NVIDIA if we don't want to see a slide down in the stock price. Generally, when you want to invest in a company, you need to look at their financials. The revenue for NVIDIA has been consistently increasing since, I would say, April of 2023. We were a lot more flat during the years of 2022, but since then, the earnings and the revenue has really kicked it off for NVIDIA. We are sitting at almost $35 billion this company is getting every single quarter. The gross profit is $26 billion for the last quarter. Cost of revenue was about 8.926, which tells you the core production profitability of its product. Their operating income has been increasing. So basically, you take the gross profit, you deduct the operating expenses. From there, you get operating income. Improving operating income is a very good sign. And lastly, we look at the net income of the company, which basically tells us the overall profitability of the company. And this also has been increasing consistently since October of 2023. The next up is the cash flow, because cash flow is very, very important for the company to run. The cash flow has been a little erratic in the last 4 quarters, but still they have $10+ billion. So they have $12.7 billion in cash flow reported for last quarter, which is again is a good sign for the company overall. Jumping into our balance sheet, typically we look at the current assets. It's about $67 billion in current asset. Current liability is only $16 billion. They have $96 billion in long-term assets, and their long-term liability is only $30 billion. So again, from a balance sheet standpoint, they are in a very, very good spot. Earning revenue estimate, the year-over-year growth for 25 is 111%. Crazy. So you can expect this company is going to produce $129 billion in 2025. This drops to 51% growth rate in 2026, then getting into the lower double digits of 21%. For a company which is $3+ trillion in size, this is not a joke. But hey, you are looking at a revenue increase from 129 billion to 237 billion in just 2 years. This is crazy exponential growth any company has, which then takes us to looking at the valuation of the company. Current fair value that is being reported on Simply Wall Street, $98.13. The current price is $135.91. So as of this number, it seems like the stock is a little overvalued. But don't just take this number in absolute term. There are a couple things that you should also look into before we jump into conclusion. The next one is we look at the price to earning ratio, and we should look at the forward price to earning ratio for NVIDIA and its peers. Among its peers, except Qualcomm, NVIDIA is cheaper than AMD and Broadcom, which are also pretty big players in the AI space and in the semiconductor space. And with that said, the fair PE is about 64.1 for NVIDIA, whereas the current PE is only 52.8, which means the company is more valuable than just your simple traditional metrics. Now, why I said looking at the fair value of the company is just not the only reason. There's a lot of thesis behind it. Companies like NVIDIA or tech spaces, it's about what the company can do in the coming years, the new products that they're going to bring that can revolutionize the entire industry and create new product lines altogether. So that's the reason why the Wall Street analysts have 46 strong buy and 12 buy ratings, with only 5 analysts having a hold rating, so no sell at all. And the consensus price target is $172.80, with high being 220 and low being 130. There are a lot of lines on the chart, and I'm going to draw a couple lines as well, but let's start off with this. I have put this price target here that all the analysts are predicting for 2025. So we will keep this line here for this entire year, and we'll see how the stock performs for the end of this year. So this is the blue line, 172.80. What we are noticing currently is we have a clear resistance level at 149.57. We have a short-term bounce from 134, which is acting as a support. You can see that there's a big volume shelf here as well. So we do see there's a lot of buying pressure that comes in at these levels. And if that gets broken, we have another very near support level at 128, which is also a big volume shelf. If that also breaks, then we have the next volume shelf coming in around the 114, where we did see a lot of bounce back in the September of 2024. So since then, we have really not seen the stock dipping below the $128 mark. Keep in mind the RSI is around the mid 46, so it's kind of neutral. We did see the decline in volume with some sharp volume right over here when we saw this big selling pressure. This was the second day of the CES event where we saw big selling pressure, and this was rejected. So 149 has been acting as a resistance for a while. Look at the number of touches we have had, and we had just failed to break. So any upside potential or upside breakout, what you need to ensure that it breaks 149.57, retests it, and then moves forward. Only then you should be looking at a breakout kind of a trade, and we'll touch upon that a little bit later. The stock unfortunately is below its 20 and 50-day moving average. This is also a doji candle where I see there's a lot of indecision in the market on where the direction should be, considering the job numbers came out much stronger than expected. So we actually had a lot more job openings from what we were expecting. This throws a monkey wrench in terms of the market was expecting some cuts, but then there are some analysts are predicting we could even get a rate hike if the inflation does not come down, because inflation, especially when it starts to getting closer to your target, becomes very sticky. This is the pattern that we generally call as a consolidation pattern. This is more or less is sort of range bound, and if you like to trade in range bound, this is where you could trade options wheel strategy in a very, very simple way. The next earnings will be coming up on 2/26, so we have some time until the earnings, so we could see a lot more volatility from now until the earnings report. I don't like to draw too many lines on my chart, but if you look at the most recent trend, it is making higher highs. So this is the top trend line here, and this is making higher lows. This is more or less like a rising wedge. Generally, rising wedges are bearish in nature, but in order for us to see a breakout, what we want to see is we want to see a clean break above 149.57 and preferably a retest to that level and then a bounce. Or if we see a breakdown below 134, and if it doesn't hold the 128 either, then that will be more of a bearish momentum. If you are just an investor who buys stocks, you should be looking at adding stocks every single time when you see weakness. So for example, if you do not have a position in NVIDIA, you could look to start a very small position at this level. Continue to add more if you see further breakdown. If you already have a position in NVIDIA, you can slowly dollar cost average at each of these support levels, because we do have an upside potential from here all the way to 172. That is almost like a 27% upside. You don't want to miss that in the coming quarters. Now, if it comes to trading and you want to trade options, generally stick with a 30 delta. That has always worked for me. I don't go too far below 25 delta, but if you want to be a little bit more averse to risks, you can look at maybe a 20 delta. So maybe a 129 put for the week, you will get about $99, $98. You do have a very decent amount of open interest, almost 11,000. But if you go 130, which seems like a more psychological number, look at the amount of open interest, 143,000 options contract. If you look to add more premium, you could even go further out, maybe 4 weeks out, 4 days or 27 days. Let's say a 25 delta, which would be 126. You could add close to $300. So what I would say, if I want to go out 1 month, I'll target about $128, which would be somewhere here, which is the 29 delta, and you would get about 375, between 370 and 380 you will get on that contract. If you already have stocks and you want to run covered calls, what I would do is I would sell covered calls on the day when the stock is green, because as you can can see every time the stock is in red, you lose a lot of value from the premium that you could have got. If you do not have that much of a capital to open cash secured put, you can always look at selling credit spreads where you can get some credit. So that is another strategy. If you are a small account, I prefer selling credit spreads on SPY rather than stocks. Do your own due diligence before you trade or invest in any of the stocks. So what do you think of the semiconductor industry? NVIDIA, will they maintain its lead? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to give us a like, click on subscribe, ring the bell notification. I will see you next time, and happy investing.